Our next speaker is Tim Hostetler, speaking about web accessibility trends and implementation in dynamic web applications.
Every year, WebAIM holds an accessibility survey of the top 1 million websites. In this table, it sort of shows some of the top errors that they found using their tool, automated tool. You can see that year over year, there's pretty consistent numbers. There's always a lot of errors. And these errors are actually pretty simple things to fix. And it just kind of goes to show that even a really small amount of effort can make a huge difference as far as accessibility for somebody who uses these types of tools to access the web. And so it would be great if a lot of these websites were to fix a few of these things. It would really make a big difference. As far as web accessibility goes, there's really one main standard, the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines, WCAG, it's also known as. It falls into 4 main principal areas and 13 main guidelines, and then there's so many success criteria underneath of each of those. To quickly kind of go over these, perceivable. In here, we want to make sure that at least we're providing one alternative way for users to access any information. For example, any non-text items like images and icons should always have some kind of textual element alongside it in order to give screen readers information about what it is exactly. Under operable, we want to make sure that all our content is accessible by multiple input modalities. For example, anything accessible by a mouse should also be accessible by a keyboard, touch input, voice control, that sort of thing. And that's pretty important. We want to make sure that, in understandable, we want to make sure that text is readable, understandable, presented in a clear and predictable way. We always have text in the same spot on the screen, for example, that doesn't change. We want to have proper contrast, line lengths, line heights, things like that, to make sure that text is readable and really just content in general is able to be understood clearly for anyone. And under robust here, it's just talking about having our markup have the proper structure so that tools, current and future tools, can use it without a problem for maximum compatibility. So just to give some basics, there are a number of semantic tags already built into HTML that can help screen readers understand what's going on. And so just talking about page structure, there are a few main semantic tags that you can use: header, main, nav, footer. It's also a side. There's several other semantic tags, but basically these will provide some structure to your web app that screen readers can grab onto, and they know how to handle each one of these sections, at least contextually. WebAIM, however, in their screen reader survey actually noted that the main way people seem to want to navigate is using headings instead. And so that's also another important part of structuring your website. Using headings, you can actually lay out all of the different sections on your site, and you can use them to have a hierarchy of content. And screen readers will actually list all these out for users, and they can skip through them very quickly. And it provides a great way of adding little jump points all over your site so that they can get the content quickly and they aren't stuck trying to wave through lots and lots of things that aren't important to them. Also, just to mention, headings are only tags, so they can also be hidden from the screen if that makes more sense in your layout or something. and read directly to screen readers. And so, if, for example, here in the top element, we're showing that heading, but for the search results below, it's hidden and only shown to screen readers. You should also always be providing text alternatives for non-text items. For example, the first item here is an icon link. This one by itself wouldn't be read or would have no information at all for a screen reader, even though it's a link. So we want to make sure there's some kind of text there that's going to be shown to the screen reader when it's focused upon. And then the same goes with the image below. We have an alt tag that will be read by the screen reader to give some context as to what it is exactly. So ADS is a single page application, which really means that the page doesn't refresh very often, which can pose a really unique challenge for screen reader or for accessibility. And we really, because we need to let the screen readers know that something has changed on the site, since we have a lot of dynamic content changing. At the bottom here, you can see in this example that we actually have a line of text under the search bar that shows the number of records returned. And on its own, prior to any changes, this is just a generic kind of element that has no real meaning to a screen reader. So it wouldn't know to read this to a user. However, it's actually pretty important information. So, and you can even see here in the Chrome accessibility tools that it shows its role as just a generic tag with no particular special abilities. With a really simple change, by adding an extra role status to this, we can change it to be a live region. In this case, it has the live region setting as polite, which basically means that it's going to kind of let the user know in a timely manner, but not necessarily interrupt what else they're already doing. But what's neat about this is that when content changes inside of this element, for example, when we do a new search, screen readers will alert on that and let users know that your search returned so many results, for example. Another area where these are really great is in error messages. So, for example, here we have an error message that shows up after doing a query. Same problem as the number of results element before. This one's really just a generic tag. And so with a really simple change, changing that to role alert, in this case, gives the live region an assertive setting, which basically will interrupt the user if they're listening to something else on the page and let them know that there was an error here. And at least it gives them an idea that something happened. Otherwise, they may not know. So to quickly mention, there are a few tools that are pretty great. AxDev tools and Wave are two automated tools that you can use that are just extensions that you can download. These will provide some good feedback. However, there's no quite analog for using the real tools that users are using. Things like JAWS and MVDA and VoiceOver are the main screen readers. Also Orca for Linux. And JAWS is as a paid one, but the other three are free, for example. And using them as much as possible is really important. Beyond screen readers, really, though, you want to make sure that you're trying out some other kinds of extensions that users might use. For example, there's one for dyslexic users that will modify the font a little bit to help with readability. There's also tools that can help with zooming in on text or maybe fixing line heights and things like that they do in more of a global way. you want to make sure that your site can handle those kinds of modifications without breaking the flow and still be able to understand what's on the page. Another tool that I've used is Chrome Lens, which helps with seeing what your page looks like at different levels of blindness and also color blindness. So I wanted to briefly mention that we also participated in a sort of third-party accessibility audit through Harvard Web Publishing, which we contracted out to. It was actually very helpful. They provided a great detailed report for us, and it was a great learning experience. They're getting some outside perspective was really important to us since we didn't have the experience in-house. So we really recommend doing this, and it was helpful for us to give us a good starting point for making changes. So in closing, for those of you out there building or maintaining web apps, I would say you should make sure that you're always thinking of accessibility as part of the core design, and it should be a main part of any new application, for example. And to do the basic stuff, make sure you have proper markup and a good structure, and you're following those guidelines. And as much as you can, learn the tools and use those automated tools to help you. And as often as possible, do usability and accessibility testing, especially with people that actually use these tools. That's where you really will find how it actually will look to users whenever they attempt to access your site. So, thank you.
Thank you, Tim. We have time for a few questions. If you could post your questions on the live question channel on Discord. So do you have any favorite tools?
We definitely use Wave and Axe DevTools for doing just general accessibility testing. I would say there are ones that you can use as part of your automated sort of setup in your CI. I don't think we have a real good setup right now for that other than using just the automated tools. So I don't know if I can recommend one that's built in for CI, but I'll look and see what we're using and post it on here.
Accessibility impaired astronomy community. It's a question from Mark.
We actually haven't gotten any specific feedback from the astronomy community in general, but we know it's an important issue and would really like to, would love to have more conversations about that. User set, use these tools, and ADS would be great to find out how they get along using the website.
Okay, we'll take one more question. How often do you update your database for newly published papers or ATELs?
I'm not sure about the answer to that one.
Yeah, I can imagine. Okay, so maybe we'll take any more questions offline, or online, I guess, in this case. And we'll move on to our next speaker. Thank you again, Tim.